Good afternoon. It's Thursday, November 29. I'm Herman Green with the Midday News. For those of you watching online at onespotmedia.com, a special welcome to you. A 15-year-old student of St. Hugh's High School in St. Andrew is dead after suffering severe burns during an arson attack at her home on Sunday. Tashai Munda, who was a grade 10 student, died in the Kingston Public Hospital yesterday afternoon. Her mother, who also received burns to her body during the incident, is hospitalized in serious condition. The incident reportedly occurred at their house on Old Stony Hill Road in St. Andrew. The proposed changes to the anti-gang legislation by the Jamaica Constabulary Force continue to create tension, especially within the legal community. Among the proposed changes, the police want to be able to detain suspects for 7 days without charge without the intervention of the court. However, some attorneys are against this request. The details in this report.
It's unconstitutional. That's the belief of one attorney at law of the JCF's request to detain suspects for 7 days without charge, without the intervention of the court. The JCF says the 7 days of detention will allow it to conduct further investigations on the detainees. But attorney at law Clyde Williams firmly disagrees with the JCF's proposal. Preliminary feedback has suggested that if the proposals are made into law, they would be deemed unconstitutional and overturned by the court. Mr. Williams warned that such action violates the principle of the separation of powers, as it is a judiciary which should determine whether someone should be held in custody in such circumstances. Speaking on RGI's Beyond the Headlines on Wednesday, he outlined why he believes it would not stand up to a legal challenge.
Routinely, the police already arrest and detain persons for days on end. The difference in this situation is that once you're arrested and detained and not charged, you can file a habeas corpus. The courts often will give the police days to prepare their identification parade and so on. But it is the courts that must have the final determination. Can't circumvent it. So my take on this is that it wouldn't survive a constitutional challenge.
Mr. Williams has also responded to the view that crime is high, therefore extraordinary measures are needed.
You can't circumvent the role of the court. It is an intrinsic function of the court to decide on the liberty of the subject by way of habeas corpus applications, which is an application to determine the lawfulness of the detention. So the Constitution is clear. So I'm not now just referring to whether or not it limits rights. That's another issue as well. And whether it is justified in the circumstances. That's another issue, and that's quite proper to look at. But in addition, it offends the doctrine of separation of powers. It removes the purview of the court for 7 days.
The list of proposals is currently being examined by a Joint Select Committee of Parliament. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn maintains that she agrees with the proposal, subject to conditions to manage the risk being perceived. She's also indicating that more legislative work could be done based on what obtains in other jurisdictions to make the proposal more palatable.
I have indicated that I agree with it subject to the conditionalities, because one is always conscious of the Charter of Rights and human rights, to which you always have to pay great deference. I would have no problem with mirroring the Trinidad legislation, and I think it's open to the legislature because they have put it in their submission. So though the police may wish to have 7 days straight, it may be that looking at the Trinidad scenario, and after further research is done by the Legal Reform Department, it would be better to have the 72 hours, then the court would kick in on application for up to the 7 days or the 14 days.
Human rights advocate Susan Goff is blasting the security forces for what she says are breaches of individuals' rights and not abiding by laws and regulations. Recently, it was highlighted that a number of persons were detained in the Zones of Special Operations, ZOSO, and States of Public Emergency, SOE, in deplorable conditions without being charged. The details in this report. Since the Zones of Special Operations, ZOSO, and States of Public Emergency, SOE, began in September 2017, there have been numerous reports of persons being detained by the security forces without any charge being laid against them. Speaking on TVJ Smile Jamaica on Thursday, human rights advocate Susan Goff questioned the conditions that persons detained are being held in. She says the state has a duty to provide for persons who are in its custody.
Would you be willing to be placed in a cell with 6 or 8 other men, no toilet facilities, no facilities to wash your hands, inadequate lighting, ventilation, a wet cell which is exceedingly hot, and there is the likelihood of outbreak of gastrointestinal diseases, etc. Would you be willing to put up with that for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 20 days?
Ms. Goff also raised the issue with the number of persons detained compared with the few that have been charged. She pointed to a Gleaner newspaper report in October detailing that close to 11,000 persons have been detained by the security forces since the first SOE, but that only 400 were charged.
There is this usual sweep of picking up people, this net fishing approach, rather than an approach targeted on specific acts that are a problem. And that in and of itself is problematic because you are taking up people who are going about their normal business, who are not committing any crime, who are no threat to public order, rounding them up, detaining them, processing them, in some instances keeping them for extended periods when there is no valid reason for doing so.
She says the state needs to recognize that the detaining of persons should be done according to the regulation under the state of emergency. Ms. Goff noted that detainees can question the security forces for the reason for their arrest and ask for an attorney.
The public defender has recommended a number of other things that need to be done in terms of maintaining proper records, an increase in the money that is paid for meals so that meals can be adequate, and that persons who have been housed in these facilities who have been unlawfully detained need to be compensated.
2 men who are charged with the murder of taxi operator Wilbur Gale between November 30 and December 1, 2012 were remanded when they appeared in the St. Elizabeth Circuit Court yesterday. 43-year-old Devon Brooks of Barton and 36-year-old Entley Smith had their bail applications refused despite a passionate application by their attorney. Attorney for Devon Brooks, Velma Hilton QC, told the court that her client has a valid alibi of his whereabouts on the night when Mr. Gale was abducted and murdered and his Nissan Caldina motor car burnt. In the bail application for her client, she stated that her client was nowhere near the scene of what took place. Ms. Hilton added that she was the one who transported him to the Santa Cruz police station on December 2 after he had called her to the report that he heard that the police were looking for him. She also questioned the manner in which he was transported, even though he was to be placed on an identification parade. Entley Smith, who is charged jointly with Devon Brooks for the murder, escaped police custody in 2014, but was recaptured and given 2 years sentence. Senior Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Jeremy Taylor, in opposing bail, insisted that the 2 accused are potential flight risks and, if granted bail, would not make themselves available for trial. He also pointed to statements from the former female companion of one of the accused, which linked both men to the crime. Justice Bertram Morrison instructed that the matter should be subjected to a case management review as there are approximately 26 witnesses. Both men were remanded to return to court on March 18, 2019. Taxi operator Wilbur Gale's body was found in bushes on December 2, 2012 by a farmer who had gone to tend to his animals. The body had several stab wounds and the throat slashed. Mr. Gale's Toyota Caldina motor car was found burnt at School Road in the Pepper community. Reggae music, the genre that originated in Jamaica, today secured a coveted spot on the United Nations list of global cultural treasures. UNESCO, the world body's cultural and scientific agency, added reggae to its collection of intangible cultural heritage deemed worthy of protection and promotion. In a statement, UNESCO stated that while reggae started out as the voice of the marginalized, it was now played and embraced by a wide cross-section of society, including various ethnic and religious groups. Jamaica applied for reggae's inclusion on the list this year at a meeting in the UN agency where 40 proposals were under consideration. Reggae was competing for inclusion alongside Bahamian strawcraft, South Korean wrestling, Irish hurling, and perfume making in the southern French city of Grasse. In accepting the decision, Culture Minister Olivia Babsy-Grange described it as a historic day.
For this inscription, Jamaicans have long recognized that this element means so much to so many, all around the world. With this inscription, Jamaica is of the view that it will invariably bring even more visibility to the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity and intangible cultural heritage as a whole.
Reggae emerged in the late 1960s out of Jamaica's ska and rocksteady styles, also drawing influence from American jazz and blues. It quickly became popular in the United States as well as in Britain, where many Jamaican immigrants had moved in the post-World War II years. A couple is demanding $30 million in damages from Sandals resorts after the bride was allegedly groped by a worker on their wedding day. The details from ABC News.
Who doesn't want to get married in paradise?
It was supposed to be a dream destination wedding, but one couple says their dream turned into a nightmare. Ashley and Jeff Pascarella headed to the Sandals Royal Bahamian Luxury Resort with 70 of their closest friends and family for their 2016 nuptials.
We had a lot of dreams, just that it would be, just the perfect wedding on a paradise island.
We had no idea what, we were in store for.
Every girl dreams of her wedding day.
The company hosting more than 10,000 weddings each year in their 24 luxury hotels worldwide. But on the night before Ashley and Jeffrey were to say I do, an intruder entered the room while Jeff was in the shower and sexually assaulted the bride-to-be.
And when I woke up, that's when I discovered that he was standing over me with his hands in my pants.
I feel guilty, I should have been there, obviously there's nothing that I could have done.
The couple recognized the assailant as Moral Adderley, the butler hired by Sandals to assist them during their wedding stay. According to a new lawsuit filed by the couple, Adderley pleaded guilty to the assault just 1 week later.
It's the day before a wedding, I'm supposed to be that guy to protect her and, care for her, and hours before we're supposed to get married, something like this happened.
They say Sandals offered to reimburse them the $15,000 they spent on the destination wedding, but only if they agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement, something they refused. The couple now suing the resort for $30 million.
Here we have something that starts off as a horror and has created psychic difficulties that have lasted for years now.
Sandals telling ABC News overnight it prides itself on creating safe and enjoyable resorts, and it takes this type of allegation very seriously.
With the clock ticking down on Britain's exit from the European Union, there's a call now for Jamaica to take greater advantage of exporting to the Union. British High Commissioner Asif Ahmad made the call while addressing a gathering in St. James recently. He noted that currently, out of all the CARICOM and Commonwealth countries, the Dominican Republic is the only country which has benefited from tariffs put in place to have trade deals with the Union. Hence his call for Jamaican businesses to take up the opportunity to expand their businesses.
What happens with Brexit and whatever is immaterial. The highway that's been built and ready to use from Jamaican exporters is empty. When I spoke to the airport manager here, he's saying that the planes that come in from long distance from Europe and elsewhere, they come in with passengers on top and a bit of their luggage, and there's huge empty spaces under the underbelly of the planes. They come in with no freight and they leave with no freight.
The British High Commissioner also noted that with the imminent exit of Britain from the Union, British businesses will now be seeking to have a stake in markets which they once overlooked. He believes Jamaica is atop the list.
So a project that is currently under discussion, some of that will be in the North Coast here, is to harvest bamboo. The company, rather confusing, called Carry Bamboo, actually presented its plans, which is to set up a pulp making factory, and then beyond that, their ambition is to manufacture babies' nappies here, which will be the first in the Caribbean, the disposable nappies. And also, as you abandon successive use of plastic, bamboo is a very, very effective replacement for straws.
We go down to news in sports. Waterhouse are now second in the Red Stripe Premier League after blanking FC Reno 2-0 on Wednesday night at the Drewsland Stadium. Tremaine Stewart in the second minute and Kenroy Howell in minute 87 got the goals for Waterhouse. In the other late fixture, Tyreek McGee's 78th minute strike cancelled out Nicoy Christian's 35th minute penalty as Harbourview and Dunbeholden played out a 1-1 draw at the compound. Now, earlier yesterday, Portmore United extended their lead atop standings following a 2-0 win over third-place Tivoli Gardens in midweek action at the Spanish Town Prison Oval. Portmore took the lead through Rondi Smith in minute 11 and doubled that advantage through Javon East in the 40th minute as they now move to 27 points at the top of the table. Elsewhere, UAFC's position worsened as they lost their fourth match in a row, going down 2-0 to Montego Bay United at Westbow Park. 2 stoppage time goals in either half was UA's downfall. Nazane Matley Grant scored in first half stoppage time to give the western side the lead heading into the break. The scores remained that way until close to the end of the match when Wade Daly made the points safe for Mobay United in the 4th minute of second half stoppage time. Match day 13 will come to an end today with Humble Lion hosting Mount Pleasant at the Effortville Community Center at 3. Then at 5, Arnett Gardens travels to Stadium East to face Cavalier. And that's the Midday News. I am Herman Green. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, the sports and production teams, good afternoon.